Mugasha, did you see the game last night?
I slept looking for a receipt. Up to now, I'm still looking for it.
What kind of receipt?
There is a certain receipt. I need to file my returns. I'm trying to find it.
By the way, do you know these guys of URA asked for 3 million from me?
Me, I paid 500,000 only.
You mean you pay only 500,000?
Yes.
They asked for 3 million. Why am I being asked to pay more?
I don't know.
You must know. We have the same level of capital, same rent, same premises. We even meet the same expenses. Why am I being taxed more?
I don't know. But for me, I sent my income and expenses via the URA website.
So they are punishing me because I did not send that through the website. Mugisha, you know these things. You know the type of expenses we go through here.
I know. But how will URA believe you if you don't write them down or keep records for your receipt as proof for your income and expenses for your butchery?
Mugisha, you mean you write all these things down?
Yes, I do. I write every detail. You see, the good, the amount, and the person involved.
But where do you get the time to write all this?
Immediately the transaction is done, or at the end of the day. But at minimum, I must know the income and expenses for each day. Otherwise, it is very easy to forget or confuse.
So, this is how your tax is being reduced.
Actually, it automatically shows me the tax I have to pay, without reducing my business capital. It also helps me not mix my business money with the money I get from the garden. Aha. Do you know that this book is showing me that you haven't paid me the carton of soda I advanced you last month?
Mugasha, you also remember that?
Yes. This book helps me to remember every detail about this shop.
Mugasha, guy, you know things and you don't even tell me.
You didn't ask. Try it. You'll thank me later.
Let me first deal with the customer.
But wait, don't forget to pay the URA tax in time.
I won't. I will not.
Okay.
You got the revenue authority, thanks you for paying taxes.
Capo, you seem to be in a hurry. Where are you going to?
I'm gonna pay URA a visit.
Why would anyone visit URA? Of all places?
To know more about the Kakasa business solutions, namely digital tracking solution, the voluntary disclosure program and electronic fiscal receipting, and invoicing solution, which have turned my business around. You know I need to be on top of my game to protect my empire. If you know, you know.
I too need to know what Capo knows.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Good morning, everybody. We want to take the opportunity to thank you for sparing time to listen in to these webinars. We've been coming through several of them. Recently, we had one on the forthcoming customs auction of goods, that is, which process is running. Right now, we are back on the export process through the port of Dar es Salaam, and that is the Central Corridor. We want to recognize that the single customs territory is one of the steps that was taken by the East African community to operationalize, to make a reality of the customs union, and also to implement and fasten the clearance process, reduce the duplication of processes at the borders and the clearance stations, and make sure that the process of facilitation of trade for imports and exports as easy as possible is enhanced. We come with experts in the different spheres of exports, and with me here I have panelists that are going to make their presentations as far as export facilitation is concerned. Allow me to start with the gentleman to my right, and they'll proceed introducing themselves. Then I'll be back to guide and prompt accordingly. Please.
Thank you very much. The moderator for this morning, my name is William Ahimbisibwe. I'm a supervisor exports under the warehousing section in the Customs Department of the Uganda Revenue Authority.
You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Regan, and good morning, viewers and listeners. My name is Charles Basomba. I'm a business analyst, manager in information technology, enterprise architecture, analyzing customs processes. I'm happy to be here with you.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Thomas Ategeka. I'm a customs officer. I sit at the port of Mombasa. At the same time, I facilitate in single customs territory processes. Thank you.
You're most welcome, Thomas. Most welcome, Charles, and most welcome, William. We must recognize that the single customs territory has been operational, and the systems have been running smoothly, especially for the northern corridor. And we are glad to have Thomas all the way from Mombasa. We usually call them our ambassadors, to tell us and give us updates on the central corridor now through Dar es Salaam port, especially with the exports process. But before I welcome Thomas and Charles to tell us how the as is and how the system will flow, the process flow of to enable, facilitate the process better, allow me to welcome the owner of the Bagambanti Nyini Kiswa, the owner of the Anthill, the supervisor exports, to make a presentation. What is an export? What do we expect? And guide us accordingly. You're welcome, Ndugu William.
Thank you very much, moderator. And once again, good morning to our viewers and listeners out there. The task for me is simple, is basically to introduce to you what many of you already know, kind of a recap of what an export is, how we manage exports, and what is cooking in the exports docket coming forward in the near future. And by way of recap, I will want to talk about an export. When a person talks about an export, what do they mean? Because there is an export, but there can also be intention to export. There can also be a full process of an export. So an export can be an export of goods or services from one country, say a country of origin such as Uganda, sold or transferred from the country of origin to another country, which is referred to as a country of destination. So to speak, goods moving from Uganda going to the Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, can be called, or is what we call, an export. So important to note here is there are a number of aspects that need to be noted clearly. That goods are sold from one country of origin, such as Uganda, and must be moved or transported from Uganda, and they must exit through our exit border stations. And an exit border can be an inland border or the port, for that matter, for purposes of the single customs territory, as shall be highlighted by my colleagues later on. So the element of sale, goods manufactured or grown or wholly grown, sold, moved, transported, exited out of our country to another country. That's when we are able to confirm that that is an export. We normally facilitate exports right now in mainly 6 regimes, as I will highlight briefly. We have direct permanent exports. Those are exports that do not require some of them may not require a transit guarantee, and we facilitate those ones under a regime called EX1. For those in the business, I'm sure we have interacted with that regime. But in case the direct permanent exports require a transit bond, then we facilitate them under the regime EX8. But the regime EX8 also is used to facilitate re-exports that require transit guarantee or bonds. For instance, where a person imports goods from China and stores them in the customs bonded warehouses across the country and is able to find market out of the country, say in the neighboring states or any other country, and sends those goods out of Uganda. We facilitate that kind of cargo under the EX8 as well. Then we have a form of re-exports where customs no longer has interest in form of taxes. Those are goods which were imported and cleared fully, taxes paid and released for home consumption. But such goods are also bought and exported by some exporters. And in that case, we facilitate such cargo under a regime we call or called EX3. I will not talk much about the single customs territory transaction under export, which is what we call the ST8, because my colleagues will dwell much on it. But for goods going through the port, now we shall be dwelling mainly on Dar es Salaam, but for Mombasa also, we send the goods under one declaration called an ST8. Then I know that there are people out there who have temporary exports. If you have a machine which has broken down and needs to go to Nairobi or needs to go to India for repair, and it will come back, it will be going under a temporary regime, temporary export, and it will be re-imported after the repairs have been done. So we facilitate temporary exports under EX2. And then we have a regime or two regimes where we facilitate simplified export transactions, especially for cross-border business transactions for small-scale traders. And we facilitate them under ES1 and SE1. ES1 requires a clearing agent. A team of a clearing agent is mandatory. And as such, for you to use ES1, you need to have a clearing agent. And it should be for goods below $2,000. For SE1, it is for much smaller cargo, also for goods below $2,000, and is generated or is captured by a customs officer. That one does not require any form of TIN number for people who have small cargo, probably 10 bunches of matoke, things like that, crisscrossing at our borders. So that is intended to support the movement of cargo on a small scale at the borders. Those are mainly the key regimes under which we facilitate exports. And allow me to just highlight on things I like so much, data, because this export data is good for us, not only as URA, but as a country. We need to know where do we send our goods, how are we trading with our neighbors, who do we trade with most, and things like that. So for March, for last month, March 2022, we can see, those of you who remember when I was on this very chair, I explained that we are trading more with our neighbors, and the data still shows that we are trading more with our neighbors. And I cherish trading more with our neighbors because charity begins at home. Before we look at the far lands, we need to concretize our markets, which are much closer. As a matter of fact, intra-African trade is low, and we need to increase. So I'm happy to see that we are trading more with the Democratic Republic of Congo, trading more with the South Sudan, trading more with Kenya, trading more with the Burundi, and I am sure that the data for Rwanda should be improving in the near future, because we resumed trading with Rwanda, and I am sure that the information will change in the near future. Of course, we trade with other countries, as you see, but I am happy to see that the top three are our immediate neighbors. Also, like I already explained in the regimes, I can see here that we trade more under the direct permanent export regime, which is the EX1, of course, plus the other regimes as explained. Again, I also still remember that when I was here a few weeks ago, again talking about export data, we were looking at the exporters that especially export through the port, and I can see that the top 3 we have today have actually not changed, and Yugakov and Kawakom and Chagalani are still leading in this form of exports. A number of many others, of course, but I just picked data for the top 10, and those are just the top 3. But I know that there are so many traders trading in a number of commodities, even through the airport, trading in vegetables, trading in flowers, trading in a lot of commodities, trading in meat and other things. Without dwelling so much on the data, I would like to quickly highlight the opportunities that are present right now for purposes of export facilitation and export promotion, for that matter. Export promotion may not necessarily be a direct role of the Uganda Revenue Authority because we have the Uganda Export Promotion Board, but the URA plays a pivotal role in trade facilitation, and if we efficiently facilitate trade, we are in a way facilitating the growth of exports. The faster you get to the market, the better it is for you as an exporter, the better it is for us as a regulatory authority, but the better it is for the country. The earlier we earn that forex, the better. So URA is offering preferential treatment at export clearance. And to emphasize that, a unit to facilitate and monitor the facilitation of exports has been formulated and will commence full operation on the 1st of July this year. That is to show the importance exports have, and that URA is putting in the facilitation of exports. And we monitor the export clearance time on a daily, by the hour, by the month, to see how fast we are facilitating our export trade. And we have a target to ensure that we beat that target so that we do not hold our export cargo at any one time. But also, you know that URA took up the issuance of preferential certificates of origin for export purposes. And we are ensuring that we offer this very, very, very quickly for those who need preferential certificates of origin, as well as the certificates of origin for other regions like the European Union, which are slightly different from the rest. Now, recently there is a proliferation of free trade zones and industrial parks, which is very good for our economy. And for example, everybody must have heard about Kapeka, where there is manufacturing of a number of products, ties, ceramic and sanitary ware, things like fruit processing and the like. So because of their nature, you know, free trade zones are export promotion schemes. So because of that, URA is putting a lot of emphasis on the facilitation of the movement of cargo through trade zones and from industrial parks such as that in Imbari. Now, the picture here, or the pictures there, are just to highlight some of the other key initiatives that have been put in place, which are also facilitating the movement of export cargo. You see a cargo scanner. We are dealing more with non-intrusive inspection of cargo, both at import as well as export, though it is done by the the receiving country for now. But you know, if you go through Entebbe, for example, that we quickly facilitate you through use of non-intrusive inspection. You know, we have one-stop border posts, and I'm glad to say that they are increasing if you export through Malaba and Busia, you know that the situation is much better than it was 10 years ago. And that is because of the availability of the one-stop border posts. And many others are being built in Bunagana, in Goli, Elegu is already operational, and a number of other areas. Mirama Hills, Katuna, you must have seen the state-of-the-art infrastructure at Katuna recently. So that is intended to support the ease flow of cargo at the border stations. Uganda Electronic Single Window, for those who are in the export business, you know that, for example, for preferential certificates of origin and for other permits required for export, we are obtaining them through the Electronic Single Window. And when sealing is required, especially, for example, for the Single Customs Territory, ST8, we are able to do electronic cargo tracking all the way from Kampala to the port of exit. Either at Mombasa, we are yet to hear more about Salaam. And as I conclude my highlights, I also want to state that we have a very special room in our hearts for the support of women traders. And we think that it is very important to facilitate in a special way women traders, especially at our borders. So we have an initiative in different border stations for supporting women as they trade. And there is opportunity for women officers at the OSBPs, special and available information through regular sensitizations, but also from the office that is provided to them. URA also supports the storage of small packages for women as they seek for taxes, if there is need for taxes at import, but for export purposes. If they need to hold up their goods for an hour or two, they are provided with sufficient storage for not the big cargo, but small cargo as they clear their cargo through the border. So if you are already out there and you want to join the export trade, you need to link up with your colleagues at the border, especially to see how you can be supported as you deal with the trade business. For now, Mr. Moderator, I will stop at that. Mine was just to highlight a few issues in the export arena and to allow the colleagues go in the depth of what is coming up in the export trade through the port. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Exports, for that presentation and sharing the issues that matter as far as export management is concerned. The colleagues, Ndugu Charles and Thomas, are going to explain more on single customs. I want, before I welcome Ndugu Charles, allow me to appreciate you. The participation has risen in the past 3 minutes from 70 to 91. So we want to thank you for mobilizing and rallying colleagues to make sure that you participate in this process that is very key to us. I saw in the chat room a request to have the notes, but our backroom team is working all the best to make sure that they are presented. Alan G says, great presentation, Bwana William. Then Wendy Kasim says, ladies on vision. Okay, those are some of the chats that we are having. Charles Basomba has worked with the external office for some time, and we are very proud to have you here. We want to tap into his wealth of knowledge in the single customs. He has been in the kitchen as well. These are the people who are behind the system enhancements, and also he has been in the kitchen and in the sitting room of single customs. So I want to request for him to share with us a brief on single customs, generally what are the features of single customs territory, then the actions that were done maybe to interface the different systems, the regional partners, etc., and any other process flows that would be necessary, and also maybe where necessary to guide us. The northern corridor has been very smooth and operational, but the central corridor is just coming on. In case you feel where need be, please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Regan, for that warm welcome. I'm humbled, and I thank God that I have been given a privilege to really move around and share that experience that you're referring to. Like you, Regan, rightly noted, the single customs territory as an initiative that was established by the heads of states of the partner states, that is the East African Community heads of state, was a way of helping the partner states export their goods smoothly. Although selfishly, when we started out, we rightly started out with imports and making sure that we make importation smooth. And then at a later stage, we went into exports. Now, there are a number of things that were bogging down movement of cargo and movement of people through our border stations. And mainly these were to do with infrastructure, to do with our roads. There are a number of things that the community has done in regards to our roads. The several non-tariff barriers that were along the corridors, that is the central and northern corridor. That was coupled with the police stops, the roadblocks from enforcement, from police, from all law enforcing agencies along the corridors, and also to do with the way bridges that were numerous on the routes to and fro the port. And in the period that we've gone through, all these have become history as a result of the simplification of the processes. Mainly from my side, the role that I take on is to ensure that our processes and our clearance processes are simplified. And that's how we came into the business of ensuring that we only use one declaration in the ESC as we clear cargo into the ESC, through the ESC, and out of the ESC. We have successfully done that with importations. We are using one single declaration to import cargo into the ESC. We have successfully done it on the northern corridor, exporting cargo through the ports of Mombasa, and using one declaration. We are currently working on the movement through, and that was mainly directly dealing with the newcomers, the new brothers and sisters on board, that is DRC and South Sudan. As they do their preparations, we had also made an arrangement to ensure that we only use one declaration for cargo going to Southern Sudan and DRC as well. And now that we have comfortably dealt with the northern corridor, we are moving to the central corridor. We had done the importation route using one declaration, clearing cargo through the port of Dar es Salaam. Now we are moving towards exporting, using one declaration while exporting cargo to Tanzania, but also through the port of Dar es Salaam. Currently, what has been happening is that customs declarations, we are making several declarations of cargo going through the port of Dar es Salaam. We are specifically making two declarations. That is, you make an export entry in Uganda. That had been explained very well by my colleague William. And once you make that export declaration, takes you up to the border, that is Mutukula. And then you make another declaration in Tanzania. Now that declaration takes you to the ports of Tanzania, and then you export your cargo through the port. Now you discover that was against the SCT initiative of using one single declaration to clear cargo through the ports. So we've been in touch with our counterparts in Tanzania, ensuring that our processes are streamlined so that they adhere to the standards of the single customs territory. And such then we would be in position to ensure that we do not make any other declaration from the declaration that we make from the first point of loading of these exports. Now we will be making one declaration, my colleague Thomas will take us through the declaration process, and that declaration is what we call the Single Customs Territory Declaration, which is abbreviated as ST8. It has been in use on the Northern Corridor, and I know people, agents are those that are in business of exports are familiar with it. Now, once that declaration has been made, that's the declaration that you will use to move cargo to the ports of Mombasa. Well, for us to be able to make that declaration and for us to be ensure that we move smoothly, there are certain issues that we'll have to deal with, especially in regards to the movement of cargo, the loading of cargo. We know for sure that for us to use the ports, we must be certain of the containers that are actually taking the cargo. So that cargo must already be in a container for you to be able to move it to the ports. Now, we also use one single bond like it has been for importation business. Even exportation business will use one single bond, which we call the Regional Customs Transit Guarantee, that we use across the region to bond this cargo as it moves to the ports of Dar es Salaam. Now, the challenges we've been having are the multiple declarations. You make a declaration in Uganda, you make a declaration in Tanzania as well, and this is also not only wasting time, but it's also a cost because you have to pay for these declarations to all the two agents. So we believe that once we come up with this one declaration, you only have to pay once and cargo will move up to the port. Delays obviously cannot be undermined because of the two clearance regimes that we would have from the two countries, and then the execution of multiple bonds for purposes of ensuring that these exports are covered in the country of export and also in the country they are transiting through. Now, we've been technically running what we call the central platform, which allows us to share data in the region. When we make declarations in the various systems in our partner states, this information is shared with the central platform, a collection center, and then it redistributes this information to the various destination countries. And that helps us a lot in that we don't have to continuously share this information. The redistribution is done by one particular system, which is housed in the ESC, and then it redistributes it depending on where that cargo is going. So at the moment, Tanzania has been onboarded on this platform, and all our declarations that we'll be making for cargo going to the ports of Dar es Salaam will be shared through that centralized platform and then redistributed to to TRA, Tanzania Revenue Authority, and Tanzanian Port Authority for purposes of ensuring that preparations for receiving these containers of exported cargo from Uganda is made before actually the cargo arrives. Now, the advantages with these processes is that before cargo departs the country of export, we have already started making preparations at the port on how it will be facilitated as it enters the port, which has not been the case previously. All cargo has been moving, going to the port, and then these preparations are made when the cargo is at the port. And that is too much time that we're losing, and you know for sure that in business, time is money. So that time is being compressed, and we believe that once this has been implemented, we'll have the smooth flow of goods within the partner states and through the region as it had been envisaged by the heads of state. I thank you very much. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you so much, Mr. Basomba. In a typical customs environment, I would shout asante sana and would clap. But I really want to say thank you for compressing. The data is much, the information is so much, but he has ably compressed it into chewable amounts. And we want to welcome you clients to keep the chat room busy. I already see conversations, questions, and interactions in the chat room. So keep them coming. But allow me to welcome my brother, Thomas Ategeka. This gentleman has been in, we call him ambassador. He has been in Mombasa for now more than a year. And he has been very focal. Even while he was in Uganda here, he was a contact liaison for single customs territory. So he's not new in the arena of single customs territory. He is going to share with us what is new with the SCT process, especially export through the Central Corridor of Dar es Salaam. You're welcome, Ndogo.
Thank you, Regan. My presentation basically is about the process flow of how a container of export shall leave Uganda through the port, through Tanzania, and it is exported through the port of Dar es Salaam. Regan, you've been talking about the Central Corridor, the Northern Corridor, but in brief, to take you through, according to the structure here, the Central Corridor stretches from the port of Dar es Salaam through Tanzania itself, through Mutukula, and then we come to Uganda. But there is also a route that goes through Busia, then it goes through Kenya. There is a border called Namanga. Then the cargo movement still takes an export through the port of Dar es Salaam. So basically, what we've rolled out is the export through the port of Dar es Salaam. But the same process that we are discussing is the same process that takes the cargo from Uganda through the port of Mombasa. So if you've been missing some points for exports through the port of Mombasa, the process is the same, only that this time we are rolling out the port of Dar es Salaam. First of all, like any transaction in international trade, there is an importer, there is an exporter, there is a buyer, there is a seller. So when these two come into place, there is some documentation that comes into action, and these documents enable our clearing agent to capture a declaration into our system. And this declaration, like my colleagues have been mentioning, it is a single customs territory declaration, which we've termed an ST8. It is basically an export, and not any other form of export, but a direct export from Uganda. This time we are concentrating on the port of Dar es Salaam. But the same process applies for the Northern Corridor. So once the declaration is assessed, the permits, all exports basically need export permits. They will be written off in the single window, and then this declaration will take different lengths depending on the risk. It can go blue, it can go yellow, it can go green. But the final point of this declaration, we expect a release, and this release is very important because it determines data transmission, the data exchange which my colleague has been talking about through the centralized platform. And once a declaration is released, agents have been given rates to generate T1s. And once a T1 is generated, it means the agent is ready to proceed with the loading, but this T1 has to be departed. If the T1 is not departed, data migration will not take place. Data only migrates when a T1 has been departed, and the departure is happening at the point of the bonded warehouse, because the agent or the driver has to go to the bond which they showed us on box 30 of the declaration as a bond of their convenience, where we have customs officers in these bonded warehouses. They go and these officers facilitate the departure of these T1s. If the T1 is not departed, you will drive up to Mutukula, you will drive up to Busia if you're going to Dar es Salaam through Busia and Namanga. Then you will have issues because you will not be able to proceed. Once a T1 is departed, you're ready to move, but some cargo is risky in a way that electronic cargo seals have to be attached to the containers because of the risk nature of the cargo, so seals have to be attached to these declarations. Once a seal is armed by our customs officer in the bonded warehouse and the T1 is departed, the container is able to move up to the border of exit that is indicated on the T1. When you reach the border, our borders, like William had already mentioned, are in a way that they are in one-stop border posts. The declaration, the T1 will be received by a URA officer at the border, and the URA officer will do exit this export from our country where it is being exported from. And the KRA officer or the TRA officer will be able to generate a C2. Now, since we said we have only one declaration, we shall not expect any other declaration into the Tanzania Revenue Authority system. The only declaration made there is a C2, the cargo movement document. And the purpose of that C2 is to move that container, to move that cargo from that border point up to the point of exit, which we are discussing now as the port of Dar es Salaam. Now, upon arrival at the port has its processes, but we expect the final point of this process to be loading, and the container will exit the region through the port of Dar es Salaam. Like I told you, the same process applies for the port of Mombasa, but we are focusing on the port of Dar es Salaam. Once this container is exported, there is an action that is done in the system by the Revenue Authority at the point of exit, and that action will retire the bond, because we said the consignment will be secured under the Regional Customs Transit Guarantee. But the Regional Customs Transit Guarantee works in a way of debiting and crediting. So once this export has finally taken place, the TRA officer, the Tanzania Revenue Authority officer, will perform a function in their system, and because of the data exchange which my colleague has already talked about, this information will come back into ASCODA and retire the bond. This is a summary of what we've been discussing. It has different players in the process. We have the role of a customs agent, we have the role of URA customs, we have the role of a transiting partner state, and we have the role of the port authority. So all these are players in the system in this process of SCT exports. We can see that at the point of authorization of loading of the cargo by the port authority, which ends the process, the bond will be retired. Now, having said that, what happens exactly when this consignment reaches the port of Dar es Salaam? Of course, when the consignment reaches the border, we say the C2 will be generated by the customs officer. In this case, we are dealing with Tanzania Revenue Authority Customs, and that C2 will move the cargo up to the port of Dar es Salaam. When they reach the port of Dar es Salaam, it's divided into terminals. There are terminals for export containers, there are terminals for import containers. But in this case, the container will be placed in the terminal. A terminal is like a yard, and this is where the container will be placed. When the container is placed, then the next part in this process will be checking of the container details before anything else is done. Is the container correct? Are the seals correct? What are the types of seals that have been attached in cases of electronic tracking, of which Tanzania Revenue Authority is not yet under regional electronic cargo tracking, but they will be using their seals, of which these seals are electronic. They have to be removed at that point. Then when that is done, the shipping agent makes what we call a loading declaration into TANSYS. TANSYS is a system that is used in Tanzania for customs work, like the way we have a Skoda World in Uganda. TANSYS is the system that they use in Tanzania. Once they make this loading declaration, it will pick the details which were input at the border on a C2. So the loading declaration has to tally with the C2, the cargo movement document. So once that loading declaration is done, the system will create an inventory into the TANSYS, which is a Tanzanian system for customs. And that inventory leads to the generation of what we call the cargo reference number. In imports language, we call it a manifest, because this container will be exported from that port to wherever it is going outside the region. So they will expect a manifest when the cargo arrives the other side. So that manifest is generated at that point when a loading declaration is done. Also, at the point of generation of the loading declaration, there are invoices which are generated in the system to enable these exports make payments. There are port charges which are supposed to be paid by the people who export through the port of Dar es Salaam. And it's at this point that these payments are generated, and once they are paid, cargo is able to enter the port. Now, when cargo enters the port, there is an inventory which was created in the Tanzania Revenue Authority system, but also the terminal handlers of the port have also their systems which they use. And at that point, when the cargo enters the port, the inventory will also be created into their system. And once that inventory is created, the cargo proceeds to the point of scanning. Like it is for the port of Mombasa, all the exports through Dar es Salaam are also scanned. So once the scanning is done, of course, if there are any offenses, they are managed at that level. If there are any misdeclarations, they are managed at that level. But the bottom line is we expect a release from customs after scanning. And at that point, once a release is secured from customs, that the scanning is okay, there are no issues, there is an authorization to load that is done in the terminal handlers systems. That is Tanzania Ports Authority and Tanzania TICS. It's another agency that does handling of cargo at the port of Dar es Salaam. So once they do the final loading instruction, it is done in their system. That loading instruction creates the final loading, and the final loading instruction, which it is sent to Tanzania Revenue Authority electronically, and Tanzania Revenue Authority uses the final loading to acquit the bond. Like my colleague had mentioned, once the Tanzania Revenue Authority officers click on the option of acquitting of the bond, the message comes to us in form of a data exchange through the centralized platform, and the bond is acquitted in a Skoda to enable the agent to carry on with the use of the RCTG bond. In the process I've mentioned, there are very many key points to note. Point number one is the physical verification of red line entries. There are some entries that you will assess that will select red. Red means 100% verification. And these agents capture a bond of their convenience in box 30. So if your entry selects red as a clearing agent, you have to drive to that bonded warehouse for physical verification. After physical verification, the entry will be rerouted for DPC to release. That is very key. So when you're capturing a bond, you capture a bond that is near you, a bond of your convenience, because if your entry selects red, you have to go there for physical verification. Now, accurate arming of e-seals is done by our officers at the bonded warehouses. And this is at the point when the T1s are going to be departed. This is to our officers because they are also stakeholders in this process. Before you arm this seal, Like the normal route is too long, you have to ensure that the battery life is okay, that it will take the container up to the port of Dar es Salaam. It is very key. Accuracy in declaration is very important. We have been having challenges with box 19 on the SAD. When you're capturing this containerized export, you have to ensure that you check box 19. Box 19, if you don't check it and populate the correct container in the container tab, this container, yes, because of what you've put on marks and numbers, you'll reach the border, you'll get the C2 in one way or the other, but when you reach the port, you will not be able to get into the port because they will not be seeing the container. So ensure that you check box 19 and you capture the correct container number, because this is what migrates to the Tanzania Ports Authority system when the container is being entered into the port. Departure of T1s is what migrates. I'm still emphasizing on this one. You will capture your T1, you load on the truck because you're not in any bonded warehouse, you're not in any customs controlled area. You'll drive up to Mutukula, you'll drive up to Port Bell. But when you reach there, you'll not be able to get the C2 and you'll be stranded because T1 departure is what migrates data into the Tanzania Revenue Authority system for C2 generation. Also in the Port Authority system, it's the departure of this same T1 that migrates data there. Meaning, if you just drive to the border, instruct your driver to drive just to the border without departure of this T1, you will have issues, you will have delays, and you will have a lot of costs involved because of skipping a procedure. For cases of data migrations, always escalate through the help tool. Like my colleague Charles has mentioned, we are dealing with systems. Sometimes our systems have challenges. You might find at the point you want to move, the C2 is not going to generate because data has not migrated. If you reach there, you've done all the procedures, but you cannot be able to proceed. You escalate the issue through the help tool. And in the help tool, we have technical officers who are sent to these tickets to be able to handle them and give you feedback in the agreed service level times of resolving of these tickets. Issues of amendments, containers should always be escalated through the help tool. This is the same thing. Some agents capture T1s with, capture entries with wrong container numbers. They add those prefixes, -0, instead it's supposed to be a block container. So if you identify such issues, raise them through the help tool. Issues of retirement of bond on export entries should also be escalated through the help tool. We said yes, the bond quito is automatic, but like I've already said, we are dealing with systems. You cannot rule out any eventualities. In case of any issues, raise the issues through the help tool. There are options that have been created there to enable our technical officers acquit this bond in one way or the other. We have box 29. Now, for exports through the port of Dar es Salaam, box 29 is very critical because it's the one that determines data migration to the port of Dar es Salaam. Always capture this as TZ-DA, and that's what will migrate data to Dar es Salaam port, and it will also migrate data to Tanzania. I know many agents are used now to the other route of Mombasa, you put Kemba, but if the exporter has told you that my container is going to go through the port of Dar es Salaam, always remember to capture this as TZ-DA. In case you capture it wrongly and you want to amend, our bonded warehouse officers have the rights. They'll be able to amend for you, but it should always be TZ-DA. Because if you capture a wrong box and you go to the port of Mombasa, like what my colleague told you, the data exchange system would have routed this declaration to Mombasa, would have routed it to Dar es Salaam, yet you've driven to Mombasa. So always capture this box appropriately to avoid those challenges. For cargo transiting through more than one partner state, like I told you, Dar es Salaam port, you can go through Busia and Malaba. Then you leave Kenya through Namanga and you enter the port of Dar es Salaam. There is a very small box on the customs declaration. It's box 10. Always capture that box as the country of first transit before you leave the export country. For example, if you're going through Kenya to Tanzania, capture that box as KE. KE is that box allows an abbreviation. It is KE. You capture it as Kenya. That small box will allow data to migrate to both Kenya, and then box 29, like we've discussed, will migrate data to Tanzania. It is very important. We shall see it later on. Now we shall also share the presentation. I've tried to highlight all these areas. Trade amongst two partner states. Intra-region trade still remains on imports. Let's not mix this process we are discussing with a process where cargo is from Tanzania to Uganda. That is already catered for under imports. You capture the entry in the destination country. If cargo is from Tanzania to Uganda, capture the entry in Uganda, Tanzania will generate a C2. If cargo is from Uganda to Tanzania, let the Tanzanian agent capture the entry, then we shall issue a C2. Let's not mix this process with the intra-region trade because it's already catered for under imports. These are the critical boxes I was talking about. Actually, the first box is box 10. If the export is going through the port of Dar es Salaam, but through Kenya, capture that box as Kenya. But box 29, capture it as Tanzania, which is TZ, Tanzania Dar es Salaam port, which is TZ. TZ will route this declaration to to Dar es Salaam and Tanzania. Then box 10 will route this declaration to Kenya as a transit partner state in this export. Then container tab, I've also tried to highlight it. If you don't check that box, you reach the port of Dar es Salaam, you'll have nothing there and you'll not be able to export. And the amendment procedure will take long in one way or the other, and you'll end up into unnecessary costs. The procedure code for exports is the same for the port of Dar es Salaam, the one you've been capturing on the export through the port of Mombasa. It's the same that you will use, which is 8400. Why am I emphasizing this? There are other regimes that are coming on, like the transit through, exports from Congo through Uganda and Kenya to Mombasa. So you will find that the procedure code is changing, but for purposes of this engagement, this procedure code remains the same, which is 8400. If you capture something else, you'll be capturing another regime. I've also showed you the box where the bond is, and this bond means if we have agents who have not executed RCTG bonds, they will not be able to capture this type of declaration, meaning you have to give your work to someone else who has secured and paid for this RCTG, and they have executed it in the system. So it's very important. This is a copy of the T1, and I wanted to emphasize a point where the container from the container tab goes. The area I've highlighted green picks the container from the container tab, and the area I've highlighted orange picks the container from marks and numbers. Most agents are able to proceed to the border and get C2s because of what they have captured on marks and numbers. But if you generate your T1, always check yourself, especially our clearing agents, check yourself first before you proceed to depart this T1. Check if those two boxes are reading the same thing. They may read the same thing, but what is more important is the second one I've highlighted green. That is the container that will go into the Tanzania Ports Authority system, the Kenya Ports Authority system. If anything is wrong from what the physical container is reading on that area violated green, please ask for amendment before you proceed with the departure of this T1. Good enough, we have an exports unit headed by the supervisor. You can always reach him, he can always guide you, he can always assign you officers to help you in this. always check yourself before you proceed with anything like departure of this T1. Even to our officers in the bonded warehouses, I'm sure some of them are in attendance, they are our stakeholders. If the agent presents to you these T1s, you should be able to check. The area I've highlighted green, I'm emphasizing it because it's really creating issues. Containers reach the port of Mombasa. Now with this process, they will be reaching the port of Dar es Salaam. We shall be having issues if that container number. If you have a T1 and that area has nothing, just know that you never checked box 19. Go back and check yourself, ask for amendments. Still, this is a copy of the T1. It also shows you the RCTG bond. It shows you the bond in force. Our officers can always check the equivalent of the bond in force in case of any diversions, because the importance of this RCTG is to secure the interests of the government when this cargo is still in transit to the port of Dar es Salaam. Then the border of exit. This is the border where you should go through when you're going, like in this case I highlighted Mutukula. You should not put the border as Malaba and then you drive to Mutukula. It is very important. Our officers can always check this. It is very important. This is the link for the help tool I've been emphasizing. It's very important. We always encourage our stakeholders to create accounts using the emails in their company domains. For companies that do not have domains, they can create these accounts using the email that is registered on their tin in Askuda. Because at that point there are some requests which are very crucial, like cancellations. Anyone can hit the system, request for cancellation, yet you cannot attach this person to this declaration. But if they have created the account using the tin which is already in our system, the email that is already in our system, it is easy for us to relate with them. Thank you for listening. And back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Ndogo Thomas Ategeka, for that elaborate presentation. And we are very humbled to have an overwhelming presence of 160 participants that are online. We want to thank our backroom team in operations that are answering these questions ably, and a good number of them were hinted upon in the presentation. But let me reiterate this one from Edgar Jumba, which I believe a good number of people are asking about. A client purchased goods from Uganda Industries and would like to export them to ESC. Which export entry do we capture? And Thomas ably shared on that, but also Simon from Nairobi shared Esunget. The client will make appropriate entry in the destination country in ESC. The client will make appropriate entry in the ESC country, in the destination country. For example, if the client bought sugar from Uganda and is taking it to Kenya, in this case Tanzania, then the client would make an IM4 in the Tanzanian system, and then data will transmit to the Ugandan system automatically. You do not need to make another export entry, any export entry from Uganda. Thank you, Esunget, for that. Then Luti Kaima, thank you so much for the informative presentation. We have, thank you, this is Rujumba. We request the backroom team to share. I think on this panel on this chat room, we should share the presentation, and our colleagues are working upon that. Then there is Penina who is saying, brilliant presentation, William. We are targeting top 10 exporters to enroll them in AEO, and of course the women in business are our great focus too. So they are exporters, the top 10 exporters that we shared, that didn't change much from the last time we were here. I know a good number of you are listening. We want to also welcome you. Our guru on authorized economic operators is offering an olive branch that please come and enroll for AEO so that you can enjoy trade benefits across the the East African community and at national level. Colleagues will be sharing this presentation. We've had cases of data failing to migrate, having cases of bounced trucks appearing at the borders, yet they did not do the prior processes. Some don't even verify, despite the selectivity, failure for the bond to be retired, and I think all those issues have been ably tabled. Allow me to request for a small short break of around 2 minutes, then we'll come back fully loaded to answer every question that shall be raised. Kindly generate the question through the chat group, and in the next few minutes we'll be back to discuss on the same. Thank you, Ndugu William, thank you, Ndugu Charles, thank you, Ndugu Thomas, for the presentation so far. We are cutting it for just 5 minutes. Thank you.
Acquiring a tin is now easier than ever before with a new interface that is brief, simple, and cuts out all the excess fields from previous applications. All you need is your national ID or driver's license or passports and internet access, and you're good to go. No more waiting in long queues, as you can now acquire a tin instantly from wherever you are. Remember, it's free. Experience our new and improved modern interface that is user-friendly.
Thank you for paying your taxes.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
In chess, the small one can become the big one. It's the same here. And here too. Watch every move. Record every number so you can plan better. No matter the size of your dream, tomorrow's success belongs to those who keep today's records clean. File your returns today.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Mugasha, did you see the game last night?
I slept looking for a receipt. Up to now, I'm still looking for it.
What kind of receipt?
There is a certain receipt. I need to file my returns. I'm trying to find it.
By the way, do you know these guys of you are asked for 3 million from me?
Me, I paid 500,000 only.
You mean you pay only 500,000?
Yes.
They asked for 3 million. Why am I being asked to pay more?
I don't know.
You must know. We have the same level of capital, same rent, same premises. We even meet the same expenses. Why am I being taxed more?
I don't know. But for me, I sent my income and expenses via the URA website.
So they are punishing me because I did not send that through the website. Mugisha, you know these things. You know the type of expenses we go through here.
I know, but how will URA believe you if you don't write them down or keep records for your receipt as proof for your income and expenses for your butchery?
Mugisha, you mean you write all these things down?
Yes, I do. I write every detail. You see, the good, the amount, and the person involved.
But where do you get the time to write all this?
Immediately the transaction is done, or at the end of the day. But at minimum, I must know the income and expenses for each day. Otherwise, it is very easy to forget or confuse.
So, this is how your tax is being reduced?
Actually, it automatically shows me the tax I have to pay without reducing my business capital. It also helps me not mix my business money with the money I get from the garden. Aha. Do you know that this book is showing me that you haven't paid me the carton of soda I advanced you last month?
Mugasha, you also remember that?
Yes. This book helps me to remember every detail about this shop.
Mugasha, guy, you know things and you don't even tell me.
You didn't ask. Try it. You'll thank me later.
Let me first deal with the customer.
But wait, don't forget to pay the URA tax in time.
I won't. I will not.
Okay.
Uganda Revenue Authority thanks you for paying taxes. Oh, thank you, taxi day.
The webinar on the export through the port of Salaam. I have two quick questions that came through as we're having our rest, our short siesta. H. Mujasi says that SCT transaction, that is single customs territory entries, of Rwanda have issues of wrong motor vehicle numbers changed at loading, and yet not amended in the system and failure to migrate. He says that hope the Tanzania SCT entries won't have the same issues. Is it possible to relax the rights to amend? And I think the panelists can choose whoever. So I will read three questions. You'll find a way of allocating. Thomas and Charles, I request you specifically for us to state the roles and kept. So those are the two questions. Maybe let me pick a third one. I think we could answer those as I get a third one. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. The issue of wrong truck numbers, yes, these truck numbers are captured at the point when the declaration is being made. But by the time maybe the entry has gone through the release process and the loading, you find the truck number has changed. But at the point of C2 generation from our bonded warehouses, I believe Mujas is one of our URA officers. That option down on the under cargo movement tracking provides for changing of that truck number. So for you, when you're generating the C2, see the truck number that is before you, input the correct truck number, because C2 generation provides for an amendment in our SCUDA. And I think we will share more information to him or to the whole of warehousing section. That place is amendable. See the truck number that is before you, change it, then proceed with C2 generation. Because at the point of loading, you find the truck number has changed. It's not the same at the point when the entry was being captured. Roles of URI officers at the port. For exports, at the port, it's the port that handles this process. The port and the revenue authority at that port of export. There is no role that is being played. Exchange mechanism, which Charles already talked about, transmitting the information. Yes, like where I sit at the port of Mombasa, you find some third-party agents at the port come in to make their inquiries. We give them information, we direct them on the right channels through the help tool through which these issues can be addressed. But the role of URA officers at the port of Dar es Salaam, the port of Mombasa, it is already played by the system. Then seals for export. Tanzania has not yet rolled out the regional electronic cargo tracking system. So basically, if that seal exceeds Mutukula and goes to the port of Dar es Salaam, it will be a wastage. So we expect if there is any seal that is tracking this cargo, it should stop at the border for now. But Tanzania is in the preparations of rolling out their system to integrate it with RECTS or to join the actual RECTS. All works are ongoing. And for now, let the seal stop at the border. At
Mutukula, which brings the question, because you also talked of the Namanga border, which now is on, I think, Kenya?
Yes.
Kenya, Tanzania. Kenya, Tanzania?
Yes. Yeah.
Kenya, Tanzania. So those that are moving that direction, how would you advise them as well? Mutukula is clear, but
now,
that Namanga?
That seal, still now, Kenya being a transit partner state in this case, and Kenya is on RECTS, the seal will be removed at the point of Namanga by KRA officer because they have access to the RECTS system, and they will be monitoring this cargo as it goes through their territory. So the seal will be deactivated from Namanga.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Before I welcome Charles, also let me read one for Ndugu William. Please state expected benefits from the perspective of customs, DT, and other angles. So the export procedure state the benefits from the angle of customs versus DT and other perspectives. What are some of the best expected benefits that cut across beyond the confines of customs? But Ndugu Charles, you may.
Yeah, thank you very much, Regan, and thank you for the questions. For Mujasi, amendments that, like Thomas has noted, amendments can be made at any point as long as you are using the correct document. We do not expect you to amend a declaration where a C2 has been generated. So the C2 is the one to be amended. So depending on what declaration is before you, that amendment can be made. And then also, we also need to appreciate that the amendments also have to be construed based on context. You are amending a C2, then it does not mean you're amending, you're actually transshipping. Because if there are details that you're moving in terms of track number, which rightly so Mujasi has noted, then it doesn't qualify to be an amendment, because then you're changing means of transport, and as per procedure, it is a transshipment. So ideally, some of these have to be contextualized in terms of processes so that we ensure that we are actually dealing with what exactly appears in the processes as we have elaborated in our presentation. And then in regards to the sealing and tracking, yes, true for sure, we will continue using the two seals from Uganda, and then TRA also using theirs. But the discussions are already underway for us to be able to use one single seal along the central corridor, like it is for the northern corridor. And once that is done, we will be able to move one single seal throughout the central corridor as well. So we encourage that for purposes of our officers at Mutukula, that once that seal has been attached in Kampala, let's ensure that we remove it before it crosses over to Tanzania. Otherwise, it will be cumbersome for us to trace it at the facilities in in Dar es Salaam and at the terminals at the port. So we request that there is some bit of vigilance from our officers in regards to removing these seals.
Thank you for that response and also putting it into context. That would not be just an amendment, it would be a transshipment per se. And therefore it will prompt us to look into the transshipment procedure, whether the requirements have been fulfilled to that accord. Thank you, Ndogo Charles. Supervisor Exports.
Yes.
Over to you.
Thank you very much, our moderator. The question is related to why the improvement of exports management at URA, I guess. So probably the person asking the question must be wondering why they need to establish a whole unit for management of exports. But to begin with, I need to say that right now, Uganda as a nation is in itself looking at the need to enhance the facilitation of exports, and it is well espoused in the domestic revenue mobilization strategy, but also under the National Development Plan 3. Why? Because growth comes with a good balance of payments in economics, but also there is a need to promote import substitution and do the promotion of local manufacturing so that we are able to promote exportation of goods. So as we attract more industry in the country, we need to support the industries to grow and be able to support the industries to export and to maximize the market with our neighbors and in Africa and the rest of the regions. But even beyond manufacturing, even for local wholly produced products that are of a local nature, we need to support them so that we're able to grow our export trade. And one of the benefits that will come from the enhancement of the management of exports is one, the key and very important one is export statistics, improvement in export statistics. Because you know that when we understand our trade by the numbers, then we are able to have an efficient planning for how we shall regulate and manage our trade. So once we have improved export statistics, which are right to the dot, then it means that government is in a position to be able to formulate the right trade policy, the right policy on exports, for example. You know that over time, policy like what to levy, to government policy like maybe if government wanted to introduce a subsidy on what product, how to regulate the export of the management of export of goods is dependent on what information in form of statistics that is available. So once our statistics improve, then government can formulate the very right trade policy, and then we will be able to see improvement in the trade in exports. But also for our clients out there, especially those that do processing of refunds, you know that sometimes there is a bit of challenge here and there in terms of I did export this, I didn't export, you know, because of some of the issues like non-migration of data that come up and things like that. We find ourselves sometimes having a bit of dispute between you as our exporter and us as the regulator, as URA. So if we enhance, once we have enhanced the exports management, which is an organizational initiative, both in customs and domestic taxes, then we shall improve the turnaround time for refund processing and also limit the amount of disputes that would ensue from the processing of refunds. But also, you know that we are doing already a preferential treatment for exports, for export trade, but we want to improve even better. We want to take the game of management of exports higher, so that if we have been spending a whole day in the management of a single consignment of exports, then we reduce it to a much shorter time, so that we reduce the cost of doing business, especially for the traders. Because once we are more efficient in the management of exports, it cuts the cost that you spend. Instead of paying for a truck for 2 days in a bonded warehouse, you'll be having a single day, or even less than a day. You'll be having less costs involved in the management of exports. So there are immense benefits, but that's those I can state for now. Thank you.
Thank you for that elaborate response. We'll have one more from the chat room, and this one is anonymous attendee. They chose to keep the name silent, which is okay. They say, greetings, we are currently unable to appoint agents as your website seems to have glitches. What is the way forward? The beautiful thing is we have the systems man around. I will not let him off the hook. Sir, the question is yours.
Thank you very much, Regan. Apologies for the hitches. We've been having issues with our link. I think starting over the weekend, and yesterday evening our teams were at it and they were able to resolve the challenge that we are having. We believe that today we should be managing the backlog for those that were not able to work. So I request as humbly as possible that you log in those specific transactions that have failed to go through with our help tool services, for them to be able to look into those isolated cases, because we were able to restore services yesterday. And then we should be able to manage those cases that are still pending. But as far as I'm concerned, this morning, the issue had been resolved, and we should be able to manage business as usual. Apologies for the inconveniences. Thank you very much.
Okay. Colleagues, thank you for your participation. Before we close it off and proceed on to implementing what has already been set for the Central Corridor exporting through Port of Dar es Salaam, the chat room continues, the engagement continues. Let us keep on the questions and we'll have a backroom team answering. Colleagues in the background, I hope the presentation has been shared already in the chat room, because I hadn't yet checked, but I hope it was shared. I would like to give an opportunity to colleagues to give us a katalekeka. What cannot be, if we forget everything else, what shouldn't we forget? Starting with Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Regan.
In that order.
Actually, in what I discussed, I didn't mention one thing. Like these exports, the Office of Declaration, especially to our clearing fraternity, these offices in box 1 should always be or have been configured to offices in the inland station. For example, if you drive your truck to Mutukula that you will make a declaration there, it will not be able to allow, because we've done some research and analysis that we have no exports that come from, let's say, Mutukula, Malaba, Busia. So if you in Kampala, don't load the cargo into the container and drive to Mutukula. Go when you already have a declaration under the Office of Declaration as Kampala, Mbarara, Mbale, Jinja. Those inland stations are the only ones that have been configured to capture these exports entries through the port of Dar es Salaam. Minus that, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Moderator and the team, to come here and share the presentation. Sensitizations is like preaching the gospel. We keep on preaching, we keep on sensitizing, because we have new people who keep coming on board. Today you see me presenting, tomorrow you'll see another person. Maybe if you never got a chance last time, you've gotten it this time. Let's put what we have delivered into practice, and we shall make this process a success. Send in your suggestions. We have to keep on making this process better and better. It's not the way it started, but it has kept on getting better because of your input as stakeholders, both internal and external. Thank you, ndugu Regan.
Asante sana.
Yeah, thank you very much, Thomas, and I would want to appreciate the team that is supporting us here to make sure that we relay this information to you, but also the listeners that have been on from the time we started. One last thing that we'll have to maybe let people know that we will roll out this new initiative effective 14th this month. So just a day after today, we will be live. So come Thursday, if you're exporting cargo through the port of Dar es Salaam, you will only use the process that we have discussed. And I'm repeating that. We will roll out this new initiative 14th of April. That is Thursday this week, not very far from this week. So if you have any consultations you have to make, please go through our lines, our help tool, reach us. I know most of you do have my contacts. You have Regan's contact and Bwana William as well. Please get hold of us and ask those questions before you make a declaration to Dar es Salaam. And like we've always said, we've moved a very long way to have this implemented, and we still have a long way to go. Our goal is to ensure that we keep on making our processes simpler and simpler. So we call upon your support. I know for sure next week we will be rolling out another module under the single customs territory, which is the transit. So meaning that this whole month is a little bit busy for us. But that's all to make sure that we smoothen the movement of cargo through the region and the partner states. So let's keep our hopes high. Let's continue engaging each other, and let's embrace the changes that are coming on board. They are to make trade better and trade within our partner states much better, and those outside the region as well. I thank you very much for listening. Have a blessed day.
It's been a pleasure for me to be part of this important webinar. And all I can say is that we are here to support the client. The reason we exist is for the client, is for the exporter, is for the person who needs the support of the Uganda Revenue Authority. So reach out to us and we shall be willing, and we are ready to ensure that you are facilitated in the very best way available. Otherwise, thank you very much, moderator.
Thank you, colleagues. With that marks the end of this webinar today. It's exactly 29 minutes to noon. I want to thank you on top of my colleagues. I want to thank you for participating, for interacting freely. I hope the notes were shared on the chat room. My team says they have shared. They are our background team, our colleagues. We want to thank you, our background team here at URA TV. Remember, the conversation continues on our Twitter account and on the Facebook account and on YouTube. We are live, and you can always go back and regurgitate upon whatever was presented and benefit from them. We are your servants. We wish you the best. Feel free always to advise us. A blessed day.
Wait, Abu, tunamaliriza. And what are you doing throwing papers all over the place?
I'm looking for an invoice for a sound system and cables that I received yesterday, but I can't find it.
You know there is a way of keeping all this in one place and available to you as and when you need it.
I really wish there was one, because the way these invoices grow legs and disappear.
I believe this is what you're looking for.
Now how did it get there?
Tabo! Do you know that with EFRIS, you can stay on track of all your business transactions and improve on your record keeping?
How so?
Kati tuli ku computer with EFRIS. I just search using the fiscal document number and I retrieve the records I'm looking for. Bookkeeping becomes simple after that.
Kapo, awesome, yeah.
I began using URS Kakasa Solutions and now I'm in charge of my business, and you can as well.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Uganda Revenue Authority reminds all taxpayers to file their monthly returns and make all outstanding payments by the 15th of every month. Please comply to avoid penalties and interest associated with failure to file returns and payment of these taxes. For further clarifications, call us on our toll-free line 0800-117-000 or email us on services@ura.go.ug. Please ignore this message if you have already complied.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing